Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Karina. Tonight it's grammar time, so tonight's topic are the future tenses. Okay, as the introduction already said, grammar review about future tenses. Basically one of those topics that we all know a lot about. I think future tenses are done quite early in the Unterstufe. I will try and point out the most important aspects of both tenses, even though nowadays in English they are used like in real English, like in the English that is out there. They are sometimes used like slightly interchangeable depending on who you talk to really. It is very much a regional thing, it's a social act almost, so it depends on who you are talking to, whether or not they make a distinction between will and going to future, and well, some people don't really make that much of a difference anymore. So those of you who are into like listening to stuff, be it because you listen to podcasts or TV shows or whatever, you may find the usage a bit strange sometimes. You may find that it doesn't really correspond to the rules that you learned. But there are some rules where we definitely can and should use them. Should, because both the will and the going to future, they do emphasize a certain thing. They do convey a certain message, and I will try to talk you through that. If you have any questions, please let us know. I haven't done that many grammar streams, so you may want to help me along. I will talk you through the theory first, and then there are 10 sentences that I will do together with you. I will give you my idea, like I will do the gap fill basically, and I will tell you why. If you want, you can post your answers, because then we can kind of discuss the whole thing. But first of all, there's some theory. Generally, I can never say that word, and I always use it. There are 4 ways of expressing things that will happen in the future, or are going to happen in the future, depending on how you see it. There's will future, there's going to future. You can use the present simple, so the like normal standard present simple, with future reference, and you can also use present progressive tense, which is maybe a special case that we might devote some, like, that I will devote some more words to. Well, that is not so important for you. The formation is important, it is very easy, it is very straightforward, but then sometimes people mix up forms. There's so many tenses out there in the English language, and so many forms and structures that you guys should know. So I suppose we're gonna do a quick recap of the formation as well. In the will future you have the will, like you have a will, not the will, and the base form, which is in most cases the first form of the verb. So you have the irregulars, and you just simply use will and the first form. The base form is always the first form, apart from when talking about the verb to be, because you would say I will be on time tomorrow, and not MR or is. So you basically use the base form, which always corresponds to the first form of the irregulars. The exception is, die Ausnahme is be, as my sheet says. Pretty easy, because will and would are grammar structures that do not permit anything else but the base form. So the word can't be changed really. So whatever you put behind appears in its like original form. The going to future, quite easy too. You need MR or is, depending on which person you're talking about. I am, you are, he, she, it is, we are, you are, they are. So all the plural forms have are. Then going to and the verb again in the base form, because the to is basically like the will, it doesn't permit anything but first forms or base forms. She is going to speak to the teacher. I always get so super over enthusiastic that I can draw on PDF files, and then I, like, instead of drawing on it, cross out things. In any case, it should be the. She is going to speak to the teacher. What I actually wanted to highlight was this too. So the two, well, that didn't go that well, but that's okay. So, well, good that nobody sees this sheet ever again afterwards. So the most important thing is use the base form, like first form after the two, same as with will. Here again, in both cases, the main verb in my example, speak, is not changed in any way. So the he, she, it plus s, the third person s rule does not apply. So there is no third person s in either the going to future or the will future. There's also no informs. So you have unaltered versions, basically. Why my examples and my usage is in German, I don't know. My example sentences are in English. I'm pretty sure that there are two forms, like somewhere saved on my USB. One of them is German, the other one is English. Unluckily, I just like changed and adapted the German one. So I'll talk you through the whole thing in English, but for you to read it in German. Will future is for things that we are not 100% sure about. Having said that, we can never be sure about the future. It's always like a hypothesis kind of thing. But the will future is always kind of like, well, we don't really know. We assume or we expect something to happen, but we don't know. Annahmen are assumptions. Vermutungen, pretty much the same thing. So we make educated guesses about things that could happen in the future. Befürchtungen, Hoffnungen, Versprechen und Vorhersagen. So if we are afraid of something, if you say something like, I'm afraid that I won't have time to go through all the vocab before the exam, then you don't know. There might be some extra time popping up somewhere. You might have, I don't know, some classes might get cancelled or whatever. You may have more time than you think. But you could say stuff like, I'm afraid that there won't be enough time to revise everything. I hope that there will be enough time to revise everything, with the hopes. Could be, but you don't know. Promises. I don't know, if you promise your parents that you will definitely study more for the exams. Promises are always kind of, well, uncertain. But we may want to highlight the Versprechen thing, because you can always... we can also use it in the going to future. I will talk you through the differences in a second. Vorhersagen, so sort of predictions. You're talking about the plan, like your weekend plans, and you kind of predict the outcome of a party that you're going to. It will be a lot of fun. You don't really know, but you hope. But well, you can't influence it. You don't really know. My example sentences, I expect that I will get this job. You had a job interview. You're not 100% sure. The guy from HR has not gotten back to you yet, but it went quite well, so you expect. Perhaps John will pass the exam, but only if the teacher has a good day. Well, that's maybe not a very nice sentence. Maybe he will pass the exam. If you say this sentence in the will future, you're kind of expressing that you're not really sure about it. Also spontaneous decisions like orders in restaurants and stuff are will future, because at the moment the waiter or the waitress addresses you to like take your order. It's kind of a spontaneous decision, even though you probably have made up your mind beforehand, but the conversation as such is a spontaneous thing. You might change your mind. So whatever is spontaneous decisions are will future. Another example, you are studying and a friend calls you up and asks you to go for a drink with him or her, and you say, well, yeah, sure, I will join you, because you didn't know that the person's gonna call and that you're gonna be invited for a drink. So spontaneous decisions like that would be, well, future. Then we have going to future. It's kind of irritating if you have the text in German and have to do the whole thing in English. If you have plans or intentions that are pretty sure, like usually with the thing, like with the, like you already did something so as to make it a fixed plan. I don't know, if you want to go to a concert and you already bought the tickets or have at least done some internet research, know vaguely what the price is, and you also have made up your mind who you're going to take with you to the concert, then the whole thing is like lending some certainty to the issue, and then you can justify the use of the going to future. And maybe the last point is probably the most important one, the big difference between will future and going to future. If you want to emphasize that something is more than a plan, or that something is more than an intention, but like kind of a plan already. That's what I said with the example sentence before. If you promise something, you can also do it in the going to future, because at the moment of speaking, you want your counterpart to believe what you say. So instead of saying, okay, Mom, I will study for the exam this time, you can also say, okay, Mom, I'm going to study for the exam this time. As I said, this is lending some like some certainty to the whole thing, because at that moment you want your mom to believe you. Classic example sentence, Jill is going to have a party on Saturday. You can hardly really have spontaneous parties. You have to do some planning. You need to go shopping. You have to invite people. So you walk up to your dad and ask him, Dad, can I go to that party, or can I go to a party on Saturday, because Jill is going to have one. We know that by the time. She sent invites via Facebook, whatever. In conversations, when you sort of know that the person is going to London, but then you're not sure about when. So when are you going to fly to London? Because you can assume that the person had to do some planning beforehand. There's hotels that need to be booked and so on and so forth. Also, like, not in asking questions, but in like the other way around, you basically saying, I am going to fly to London after the Matura as kind of a present to myself, kind of mini Matura Reise trip. So you're flying to London because you always wanted to go, and you're like communicating that this time you really go. And because it's 2018 is almost over, and we all make those great New Year's resolutions. A resolution is a, what do you say in German? That one. Do you say Neujahrsvorsätze? That's the German one, isn't it? Yeah. So you're making all those great plans of like, you know, what you're gonna change in 2019. I'm going to stop smoking this year. It's not, or it's more than just a plan. You're talking to your friends and you're talking about all those great plans of like doing more sports, I don't know, studying more, drinking less. And also going to stop smoking. Usually people who have New Year's resolutions are quite sure about it, at least at the moment of speaking. Usually the plans don't work out that well, really, but at the moment of speaking you're quite sure. You have counted, like you have made calculations about all the money that you invested in cigarettes in 2018, and then you're kind of like, well, yeah, that's too much. I'm going to stop smoking. As I said, the important thing is the moment of speaking. Your plans might be, you know, you might end up with the idea that, well, you know, smoking is the one and only vice, the only bad habit that you have, and that you keep up smoking, like in 2019. But at the moment of speaking, you're quite sure. Then present simple for future tense. Quite easy, because there's really only one rule that we have to obey. It's schedules and timetables, so Fahrpläne, Stundenpläne, stuff like that. you talk to your mom at 6 o'clock in the morning or at 6 o'clock in the evening in my example. You talk to your mom at 6 o'clock in the evening at the dinner table, and your mama knows that you're gonna go out and that you need to take a train, and you say, well, I have to hurry up because the train leaves at 7. For you, it's future tense. It is 1 hour in the future, but schedules and timetables, well, you don't influence the schedule, you don't influence the timetable. The train leaves with or without you, and it leaves at 7. So as soon as you make references to timetables and schedules, you can use the present simple, because it will happen with or without you. Same for school. Today's school starts a little later. That's why I can sleep in a little bit. That's what you say to your mom, because you start an hour later. It is a timetable as well, a changed timetable in this case, but it's some time references that have to do with your schedule at school. Then maybe the one thing that can be a bit confusing every now and then. Why is this thing here? Hello, go away. Okay. You can also use the present progressive tense for future references. If it is not too far in the future, so like nahe Zukunft kind of thing. If you have a place, if you have a time, and if you have a date, something that is fixed, very frequently replaceable or a substitute for the going to future. Languages always tend to make things easy, like we try to make it as easy as possible. So we could say, why is there a new example sentence? You can say stuff like, I'm going to the cinema tonight, instead of I'm going to go to the cinema tonight. Tonight is a time reference. We know that, well, if you have a conversation, people usually know what tonight is. Or you can say, I'm writing a test at 10 o'clock. If you say that in the morning, then it's like close time reference. And you have a date, a place, or a time. As I said, frequently used in oral English as a substitute for going to future. Okay, it's all about the perspective at the moment of speaking. That's very important. The most important thing is if you want to lend some credibility to what you're saying, or if you want to just leave it a vague plan, like some vague idea in the will future. With the going to future, you convey the message that you're sure at the moment of speaking, in all the promises and stuff like that, because you want to, well, that's what you want to do. Okay. So this is in English for a change. How nice is that? Stick to the basic rules. So will future is for hopes, assumptions, expectations. If you say something like, I hope that I will be able to go to university after your level 8 levels, then it's an expectation, something that you hope for, because you still have to pass a couple of exams prior to going to university. Going to emphasizes that you're sure about something at the moment of speaking. If you say to yourself, as kind of like a self-motivation, I am definitely going to pass all those exams so that I can go to university afterwards. It's not sure if the exams are in the future, even though we all hope you do, but you are sure at the moment for yourself. Oops. Okay, you can also use if clauses for future reference. If clause number 1, maybe more frequently than number 2. If the weather is nice tomorrow, we will have a Glühwein at the Christkindlmarkt in the evening. It is future tense, but there needs to be one condition fulfilled. So as for you to go, because you don't like snow and rain at the Christkindlmarkt, which makes sense. And so you use conditional clauses 1 for the future tense. That is and you also provide a certain condition under which this happens. Okay, let's have a couple of sentences. I will give you time to look at them. And, well, yeah, if you want, you can comment in the comments. You can comment in the comments. Great. And that from the person who always says that Wortwiederholungen are really bad. Any questions so far?
No.
No. Good. So we have sentence number 1. I tried to pick example sentences that are quite straightforward, that are kind of like, you know, that show you like what I illustrate or what I tried to illustrate in the theory part. So in the first one we have, look at James, he has been working on the car for over 3 weeks now. Looks like he blah 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 today. Here you have 2 options really. You can, it's probably the thing too small, going to get it done. Very nice. It's going to future because, well, there is proof of him getting it done. So you can definitely use going to future. You could also use present progressive, really. He is getting it, looks like he is getting it done today. Would work as well because it's the same day, it's a very close future. Today is time reference. So both present progressive and going to future would be possible in the first one. In number 2, a very ambiguous sentence. If you don't want to emphasize that you really get the book, a novel is a roman, like Harry Potter, whatever, that you are going to get it done. So I am going to, I spare the rest, my handwriting, well, I can also finish it, isn't that great. You want to emphasize that you're going to get it done, that you're going to finish the novel by tonight, because then you have to return it to the library and you actually really want to read it. So I would definitely go for going to future here if you want to emphasize that, you know, that you will spend the time or the evening reading instead of watching TV or whatever. Number 3 is an if clause. If technology develops, so it's present simple in the Nebensatz, it's present simple in the if clause. There's not that many options that we have really, because you hardly ever use going to future in if clauses. If technology develops at that speed, I guess 20 years from now on, everyone will have. Fits to my examples as well. It's pure speculation. We don't know in which direction technology is going to go. But, and also from our standpoint today, it is not 100% sure that everyone will have a personal robot at home. So it's pure speculation and it's an if clause. So we'll have is the option that you have to go for. Number 4 is actually the exact same sentence than in my example sentences, apart from the fact that I changed the time a little bit. The train, blah, 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 at 7. Classic present simple case, the train leaves at 7. As I said, it leaves with or without you. At 7 o'clock is, oh, we know that it leaves at 7 o'clock because it is a timetable. The whole thing, you can read it up on the internet, you can have a look at it at the railway station. So it's a timetable, so present simple is fine. In number 5, it is actually the second part of the sentence that tells you what you need to do. He has saved enough money now to save money, Geld sparen. You know that your uncle always wanted a house in the Lake District in England because it's a very, well, it's quite pretty up there. And you know that he has been saving money for the whole thing for all of his adult life, basically. So it was one of his plans. So now that he has the money, he's going to realize the plan. He's going to put it into practice. So going to buy. It's definitely going to future as well. You are basically underlining his plan. You're emphasizing that he now has enough money for the house. In number 6, you are at the garage, you're at the car mechanics, and they kind of forgot about your order, so you told them to change the tires because, well, it's snowing now, so you need your winter tires. They forgot about it, and the guy at the car mechanic says, well, they haven't repaired the car yet, but I promise they are going to do it this afternoon because because at the moment of speaking, the guy at the garage probably doesn't want you to get angry, and so he's using going to future because he wants to make sure that, you know, that you believe that it's gonna get done. Number 7, I feel really sick after this cake. I think I blah blah blah, any sweets. That's a spontaneous decision kind of thing because you didn't know that you will get sick after all this cake, even though it was quite likely. That's what our moms always tell us, you'll get sick if you eat too many sweets. But you didn't know, so it's a spontaneous decision. I will not eat, or I won't eat any sweets anymore because, as I said, you didn't know that sickness will be the result of all that cake. Number 8, you're sitting at the football stadium, you are watching, I don't know, Arsenal playing. They are playing very badly today, and to lose is the question. Both possible, really. I guess it depends on how far into the game they are. If it is in the first 5, 10, 15 minutes, then you can use will future. They will lose. It's something that you're afraid of, but you don't know because there's still a lot of time to go. If it's like 2 minutes before the end of the game, then you can use going to future. They are going to lose because it's 3-1 and they probably won't be able to turn the whole thing. So depending on your point of view, you can use both. A classic example of where you can use both depending on like which message you want to convey. As I said, first 5, 10 minutes, will future, end of game, going to. You're talking to a person, the goodbye for now is basically marking direct speech. And you promise this person that you will call him or her in the course of the week. Well, no, you don't, is a different story, but it's a spontaneous decision and you say, I will be in touch with you later this week because you don't know that the conversation will take this turn. And it's something spontaneous, like, okay, goodbye, I'll call you. It's like a spontaneous thing that you say. And the last one, my favorite sentence, I always have sentences that are about studying. You have the first part of the sentence and then the additional information. I even cut down on my working hours a little. I really have to finish university soon. So the second part of the sentence gives you, like basically tells you where I want to go. I want me and all the people around me to really believe what I'm saying because, well, I already that's not going to work. I already talked to my boss and told him, well, there will be I will be available for only 10 hours instead of 15 because I really have to do something for university. So you're sure at the moment. Going to study because you already took some measures so as to, well, make this possible. Turn the plan into reality, and then that definitely justifies going to future. Read and check, that's not for you. Okay, so basically the most important part, once more for you as a summary. So, as I said, there is no like the line between when to use will and when to use going to future can be a bit like blurry, really. You can always justify the usage of one or the other, I suppose, at the end of the day. But stick to the following rules. You use will future for hopes, assumptions are annahmen, and expectations, Erwartungen. And the going to future, if you in your exams want to emphasize something that you think is the truth at the moment of speaking and that this is going to happen, quite sure, like within the scope of the sure sureness of the will future or of the future tenses. You could, for example, say that the climate is going to change on a tremendous scale and that we need to do something. We don't know, really, but you want to convey the message that it's an urgent thing and that it is going to change and that there will be problems and that there are going to be problems. Then you use the going to, and if it's more in the direction of hopes and fears and stuff like that, use will future. Good. I think that was it for tonight, unless there's anything that I... Good. So it's me next Monday again, so I see you next week. Thank you very much and goodbye.